Once again, a very good evening to all of you. It is a true pleasure to welcome you all to the book launch of The Middle of Everything by Vivek Atray. My name is Spriha, and it's an honor to be your host for this evening. We have with us several dignitaries. Our chief guest, Mr. Gaurav Yadav, will be joining shortly, hence the empty chair. But we would like to extend a very warm welcome to Major General Neeraj Bali, Dr. Balram Gupta, and Ms. Manraj Grewal, as well as all of you distinguished dignitaries, friends, and family members. We would also especially like to acknowledge the presence of Lieutenant General Dipinder Singh Sir. The Middle of Everything by Vivek Atray is a book that exemplifies all that is cheerful and peppy in life. The pages of this book, hopefully, will calm your mind and warm your heart. It is a motley melange of middles, which are short, humorous or inspirational pieces published on the editorial pages of leading newspapers over the years. The Middle of Everything epitomizes a larger, hopefully more meaningful perspective of life, with a sense of aboveness, a quantum of hope, and an air of loving positivity. This book has been published by Fern Tree Publishings, and the cover of this book has been illustrated and designed by Kavya Atray. Doesn't it look amazing? I would now like to invite Kavya herself, who is an artist and an expressive arts therapist. She will be reading out one of the middles from this book.
Yeah. Papa just asked me to tell that Spriha is my sister, so she was extra kind about the book cover and everything. But it's good to be here. My name is Kavya Atray, and I'll be reading A Yawning Divide from The Middle of Everything. So this middle was written in the year 2011. A Yawning Divide. Some people can just never wake up early. They munch their breakfast on the way to work. They have excuses at the ready when they reach office late. They miss trains on a regular basis. They have never seen a sunrise, and they have never met the milkman. Until a loved one turned over a new leaf recently, she was one such late riser. Try as she might, she couldn't help pressing the snooze button 100 times before she finally got up. She felt terrible about this tendency of hers, but there was nothing she could do about it. Come morning, each day, she would not just be able to shrug off the desire to sleep a while more. Only when divine intervention answered her prayers recently was she able to join the Early Birds Club. Another relative of mine has no plans of joining this league too. She is rather unabashed about waking up past noon on a daily basis. To be fair, her husband is a media personality who typically arrives home from work past midnight. That does indeed give them sufficient justification to stay longer in slumberland each morning. This practice does lead to certain oddities though. He goes for his morning walk at 1 p.m., heat waves and appalled onlookers notwithstanding. They once returned from a night out only to meet the neighbor's son who was off on an early morning jog. Early risers clearly have the edge in life. By the time most of us wake up, they've been through their morning rituals, enjoyed their walk, had their tea, and read the daily news. They're also likely to have made long distance calls before dawn to those similarly inclined. Thus, by the time the sun warms up, they're likely to have discussed all varieties of men, matters, and affairs with a dozen people. The upshot of these varying tendencies is that such extreme contrasts often exist in the same household. Weeks pass before the younger lot, typically the late risers, and the older lot, normally early birds, come face to face. It's almost as if they live in different time zones and different countries. All over the country, things are likely to be pretty much the same in this respect, one would think. If the man of the house, any house, decides to take a day off from work, he'd probably find his son emerging from his room at about 10 a.m., and that too in a rubbing eyes mode. After fooling around for a while, the lad would probably dash off to college in a rush while simultaneously zipping up his jeans and sending text messages on his phone. His father would undoubtedly be left shaking his head and burying himself deep into his newspaper. Such lucky families have come to a perfect understanding though. My sister, a teacher, and her husband, a doctor, wake up at 4 a.m. each day in order to be done with their daily chores and to spend quality time together before their frantic schedules begin. My sister cooks all the meals for the day before the sun rises and is done with all her household work by 6 a.m. Word has evidently gotten around about their days. It is learned that the garbage man turns up at their house every day at 5 in the morning. And when the good doctor had to undergo a small surgery himself, his operation was actually listed for 5:30 a.m., an unheard of hour for such an intricate activity. One only hopes that the operating team had gone to bed nice and early the previous night. One thing's for sure, 5 o'clock in the evening is probably the only time of day when one can hope to invite such contrasting creatures together for a celebration. At any other hour, one type or the other would probably be found yawning away to glory. Thank you.
Thank you, Kavya. While we wait for Mr. Yadav to join us for the book release ceremony, let me read out another middle. Let me read out another middle from the book. This one is called Occupational Hazards. The writer writes, from the outside, certain jobs appear to be a lot cushier than they actually are. Administrators, for example, may seem to be having an easy time of it. However, there are in actuality several potential hazards that dot the landscape. What's more, some of these can lead to precarious and often hilarious scenarios. Some years ago, a senior officer with a fiery reputation decided to visit a Chandigarh-based center of education soon after joining his new posting. As the director of the concerned department, yours truly was at hand to welcome him and to hand over some flowers. All went according to plan until, for some unknown reason, the senior officer decided to smell the flowers. To my utter alarm, as soon as he tilted the bouquet to do so, a substantial amount of water sprinkled onto his trousers. I held my breath in anticipation, fearing nothing but the worst. Occupational hazard, he declared most magnanimously after a pregnant pause, much to my relief. As the chief guest oneself on motley occasions, one finds other kinds of traps in store. The lamp lighting ceremony is one such. The cotton wicks simply refuse to light up, you see. They are either too thin or too thick, or too dry or too oily, depending on the school of lamp lighting to which the supervisor in charge belongs. After years of practice, one has managed to reduce the time taken to light a lamp, but one still has to wait endlessly for a significant number of significant others to follow suit. The minute-to-minute schedule at such a ceremony can go for a toss if the lamp lighting ceremony takes inordinately long, which it usually does. Another game changer is the sound system on stage. At times, one does not know whether the microphone will last the course or will let one down midstream. At times, it behaves like a moody lover. One never quite knows what to expect with it. Attending a wedding can also be a truly traumatic experience for an administrator. You see, as soon as one starts enjoying the kulfi faluda, some worthy will stride up and want to discuss solid waste management or some such entirely unpalatable subject. It is only by being stoically silent and nodding absent-mindedly that one can put an end to his detailed exposition on the uncomfortable subject. To top it all, having met thousands of people along the journey of life, one tends to get into a real fix at times. There will always be someone who walks up and expects one to know everything about him. The man will be so sure of himself that one just does not want to disappoint him by confessing he does not have the foggiest idea of who he is. All one can do on such occasions is to ask him about his children and where they're studying before pretending to receive a call and walking abruptly away. Hazards of the occupational kind can indeed come up unannounced and uninvited anytime. This was Occupational Hazards. One glance at the contents section of this page, I'm sure it'll put a smile on your face. I'll read out a few of the titles that amused me. One of them is called Bad Hair Days. Another is Massage Networking. There is Stage Fright, Jumping the Queue, Last Minute Tendencies, and the Travails of a Teetotaler. There's also the Spectacle of Spectacles and The View from the Stage. There's also one called Mango Mania and the Golgappa Man. I think you'll enjoy reading this book. Okay. Let's get on with the speeches for this evening. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Ms. Manraj Grewal Kareban, who is the resident editor of the Indian Express at Chandigarh. She is the author of a book on Punjab militancy called Dreams After Darkness. A renowned journalist, Ms. Kareban has to her credit multiple path-breaking stories and articles. She's worked previously with the Hindustan Times and international publications. And may I please invite you to say a few words?
So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here, and I think I was going to introduce the book, but you all these chuckles and everything, you already know what is in store for you. So, but a book as delightful, witty and insightful as its author, Vivek Atray. So I should know that because I've known him for the past almost 3 decades. So the 2.5 decades. 3 decades sounds very ancient. So the title of the book, The Middle of Everything, not just alludes to the space that his articles get in newspapers, and that is what the middle, but it's also his knack of striking a balance in everything, be it as a bureaucrat, be it as a mentor, be it as a friend, or as a meditator. So anybody who knows Vivek will certainly know 3 things about him. First, how he met his wife, the love of his life, right? And here he tells us how she gently, because I can't imagine her doing anything aggressively, how she gently goaded him into writing these tongue-in-cheek pieces, which are also very insightful, right? So I met Vivek when he was posted in Chandigarh, and he was a very rare bureaucrat who could get a whole room to chuckle, which is very rare because most of the time the speeches tend to make you very sleepy. So in his case, he would make people smile, if not laugh, and I'm sure that helped to move his files faster, right? And so coming to the middles, because this is a compilation of the middles Vivek has published in several newspapers. So in the newspaper parlance, these are essentially very engaging, crisp, and often humorous pieces tucked away in very serious news. And they generally have a big fan following. So the Vivek has mastered the art of telling riddles, writing riddles, because he weaves wit with wisdom. So while you smile, but there is also something to ponder about, there's also something to think about. I will not analyze his humor for a simple reason. They say it's like dissecting a frog. The frog dies and nobody's interested. Right? So, but as Spriha and Kavya both read out, that is what his humor is like. You start reading it, it's very much like on the lines of P.G. Wodehouse. He's a big fan of P.G. Wodehouse. In fact, we bonded over P.G. Wodehouse. So it's the late, the line that those who wake up late would have never seen the sun rise or met the milkman. So the two opposites. So in another chapter, he describes a speaker, and I hope I'm not one of them, who plunged the gathering into depths of boredom hitherto unknown. So much so that everybody fell asleep, including Vivek. And this is after lunch, which consisted of puris with various kinds of halwas. And then the gentleman was very agitated, was very angry when he saw people happily nodding off. Then the whole gathering got an earful. And very sheepishly they woke up, right? And so the best thing about his writings is that they are very non-judgmental. They are not judgmental at all. So, there is a saying that before you criticize someone, walk a mile in his shoes. That way, when you start criticizing, you would have walked a mile and you would have had his shoes. You would have his shoes. In his case, he does it very gently. So he talks about having coffee at Venice, and where a fellow countryman, who he describes as a pillar of pomposity, because this guy was all I, me, myself, and all of that. Then the encounters, the Shatabdi encounters, all of us have had. So, people talking on the phone. So he says one person who was basically belittling, giving it off to his junior, the profanities were so profound. Because I think he started giving compliments to his mother and sister, the caller, right? The profanities were so profound that he says some courageous souls got up to check him, and then ensued a very heated argument, which all the passengers enjoyed, right? So I wouldn't go any further. If you like P.G. Wodehouse, you will love this book. If you like reading about people's quirks, with a smile on your face, please go pick it up. Reading it is like having coffee with Vivek, except that you don't have to argue about who's paying the bill. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. That was a delightful speech. Thank you so much. You can look at the smiles in the hall. We next have Dr. Balram Gupta, who is a professor emeritus and a senior advocate. He is a former director of the National Judicial Academy and former professor and chairman of the Department of Law at Punjab University. His book called My Journey with Law and Justice contains an autobiographical account of the different roles that he has played during his nearly 6 decades long journey as a legal professional. Sir, the stage is yours.
General Neeraj Bali, Madam Manraj Grewal. The cause of this evening's function, Mr. Vivek Atray, the Chandigarh Centenary Compostary, the family members. Such a delight to be part of this book release. The middle of everything. Mr. Vivek Atray is a multi-utility human container. Engineer by training, civil servant by profession, at heart a writer, a motivational and inspirational speaker, a lover of cricket. I'm sure his mind must be what is happening in Dubai at this moment. This book contains 56 episodes. I was wondering why 56. I googled and I found a reason for that. The number 56 has a significance of its own. Lord Krishna's birthday, 56 dishes are prepared with different flavor so that the people could enjoy the prasad on that auspicious occasion, Janam Ashtami. Lord Krishna used to have 8 meals a day. He lifted the Govardhan hill on his little finger in order to provide shelter from rain, storm to a large number of people. It continued for 7 days. He didn't consume anything during those 7 days, having the hill on his little finger. And the story goes 8 into 7, 56. And on that special day, 56 different kinds of prasad is made for the devotees of Lord Krishna. Even Hitler lived for 56 years. From 1889 to 1945. It is said men live not in years but in deeds. And therefore, this book is special with 56 episodes. Each episode is a recipe of its own kind. Cooked, baked, with different ingredients of experiences of life that he has captured in these different episodes as such. And therefore, this particular book has a special flavor of its own kind. Each episode weaved and knitted in humor, inspirational life stories for that matter. I call that each episode is a fertilizer. Why do I say that? When I read some of the pieces, one could relate to many other incidents of your own life experiences as such. Sharing some of those particular episodes, optimism is the only way. Mother Teresa's life journey, how she devoted in order to provide dignity, to live with dignity as such. That makes for the optimism and the positivism of Mother Teresa, the episode has been brought out so beautifully. When I was reading that, I was reminded of Alfred Nobel. He was reading a newspaper in the morning, sipping tea, and he found his name in the obituary column. King of dynamite, merchant of death. He felt so disappointed that this is how I'm going to be remembered. Look at the comparison with Mother Teresa, what she did. You know, the positivity of his mind, the optimism of Alfred Nobel. In a day he came out with a solution. Constitute a trust and instituted the Nobel Prize. Every year for the best of works of literature, in medicine, in chemistry, in physics, in peace for that matter, the Nobel Prize is given and awarded. Alfred Nobel is no more. Mother Teresa is no more. His fragrance continues, like the fragrance of Mother Teresa, for that matter, as such. The smile of a champion, that's another episode. Olympic medal winner or the World Cup cricket winner, they have their own smile of a winner as such. I am sharing a story. A boy, he was drowning in the river. Another man passing through, he jumped into the river to save his life. He brought him out. And the boy thanked him. The man says, "Thank you for what?" "For saving my life." He says, "Boy, remember, when you grow up, you must prove that saving your life was worth for that matter." Wow. And you know who was that boy? C.V. Raman. Wow. That's the kind of a smile that one can bring in that particular process. A lit fest, well lit. What a beautiful episode. Vivek participated in the Jaipur Literary Festival. After an intense session, he shares, an old graceful lady summed up, and I quote, "The festival is a thinker's paradise, a social doom, a fashion show, a musical outing, and a laugh riot, all rolled into one. What a binding and bonding of literary feats as such." May I add, literature is the best preservative that the human race has ever known. Absent-mindedness, unlimited. I, being a professor, I know of many absent-minded professors. Professor Stephen in London University, he distributed the answer sheets of the students who had taken the examination. A particular answer sheet of a student, it was written, "Idiot." He was calm, the student was calm and quiet. He stood up and said, "Sir, you have signed the sheet, but you have not given the grade." You know, that's the kind of absent-mindedness. And therefore that episode has its own aspect to be shared with. Travails of a teetotaler. Vivek, you don't drink. I'm in good company with Vivek. But I do offer a drink occasionally. I'm reminded Professor Ubendra Bakshi, the best living law teacher that we have in the country today. He's 86 years old. He loved his drink. One day, he was at home for dinner and he was enjoying his drink. It was close to midnight. My wife was getting restless. She brought a bowl of soup. He looked up, smiled, and had the bowl in his hand. The regular drink he poured in the soup, had a sip of that, and said, "I am in soup now." You know, these are life experiences worth sharing as he has done it. Stage fright, who doesn't have it? In fact, I have been saying schools need to be the nurseries of public speaking. College, you nurture that. In university, you polish that. I have seen professors of law in the month of December and January coming out of the class sweating. That's the kind of fear. And therefore, this episode brings out the real life experience in that particular context. I can go on, but I'll conclude with the last one. The mistaken identity. The two sisters, twins, identical. One got married. And after a couple of weeks, the other sister had gone for a date to a restaurant with her fiancé. An old aunt of the family spotted her over there and thought that the one who got married is now having an affair with another person. Mistaken identity can take you to what particular consequences. Each episode has a lesson, has an inspiration, motivation, and humor in abundance for that matter. See, if you can mix the two, that's the best recipe. Thank you, Vivek, for giving us this particular book. We are indeed delighted. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your speech. Thank you very much. I would like to extend a very warm welcome to our chief guest for the evening, Mr. Gaurav Yadav, IPS, DGP Punjab. We will now have the book release ceremony. Can I now request Mrs. Neena Atray and Mr. Hardeep Chandpuri to join us on stage for the book release ceremony.
Which stands Hardeep? Hardeep? Please come. Please come. Yes, sir. We can go ahead, sir. Yes, you open it.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is The Middle of Everything by Vivek Atray.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you so much. Please take your seats. Next, we have with us Major General Neeraj Bali, who has been a veteran of the Indian Army. General Bali served in several operational areas and roles, including as commanding officer of an anti-terrorist battalion and key staff officer handling intelligence and counter-insurgency operations in Kashmir. Sir is the author of The Winning Culture, Lessons from the Indian Army to Transform Your Business, as also a TEDx and a motivational speaker. Sir, please deliver your speech on this occasion.
Ladies and gentlemen, those of you who love cricket like Dr. Bali here and are holding their breath, the score is 155 for 3. And it's 24.1 overs. And yes, one is out. When I retired from the army some 9 years ago and started getting invited to events and functions, I noticed that every time I was introduced, somebody would say, General Bali needs no introduction. And then would go on for 20 minutes telling people what I had done, almost like convincing the audience of my validity. You would have noticed nobody introduced Vivek today. Because everyone is aware of his accomplishments, his achievements, and the depth of the human being that he is. All that I'm going to say in introduction is that unlike Manraj, I've not had the pleasure of knowing him for 30-25 years. I've known him since November of 2023. I consider that one of my good fortunes when somebody suggested that I should go to him with my problems and my challenges. And ever since, I've found him one of the most supportive, one of the most positive, and one of the most dynamic human beings that I've met. So thank you for all your friendship and your humanity that shines right through the book. So much has been said about the book already that I really have very little to say, but I still will say. So I'm going to take a different route. I will talk about a few chapters, hopefully the ones not been spoken about, and I'll tell you what personal memory it triggered for me. Not because I want you to know ordinary things about my ordinary life, but because to tell you how relatable this book is. Each one of you, the moment someone mentioned Shatabdi, everybody chuckled. Right. He begins the book with something called He Held Her Hand. It's a very poignant story from his own life about his grandparents, whom were married for 62 years and metaphorically or otherwise held their hands. I was straightway reminded of my own parents. My mom is 95 and still with me. 2 years ago when my dad passed away, they'd been married for 70 years. And I remember a particular day when sitting on the dining table, like all husbands do, he was teaching my mom some lessons and upbraiding her. And he was going on and on, my mom was just nodding. And I was a little cheesed off, so I told her in the bedroom, I said, why don't you retaliate? Why don't you speak when he's talking to you? She said, what should I speak? I wasn't hearing it, I heard nothing. Then there is a particular piece which he calls Life in its Evening. I eagerly dived into it because it's 7 p.m. in my own life. But I was greatly impressed or happy to see that the story is indeed about someone else who's 95-year-old, like Jan Depinder here, and who's living it up. He talked about a retiree who learned to sing much after he had retired. That reminded me of something. In 2003, I had a layover in Dayton, Ohio, the very town where Wright brothers flew the first plane. It had snowed heavily. I was staying in a hotel, and nothing to do. I went into a karaoke bar. No, I'm not a singer. But after a few drinks, I thought I'll chance my arms in front of the strangers. Now you know what happens when you sing in karaoke? The words and the sound that is going through your head is of the original Neil Diamond. What is coming out is substantially different. I sang 2 songs, and suddenly I saw some police people in the bar, and they escorted me out and they demanded to see my passport. I, of course, knew that 9/11 had just happened, so maybe I was an Asian-looking guy, and they wanted to just be sure. But my family is convinced to date that the police came because I was posing mortal danger to people by singing. And I've got so much feedback about my singing from other people, I began to agree with my family. But this chapter, of course, is about living life in the present. Spriha mentioned about Bad Hair Day. How is women's obsession? He talks about even it being men's obsession. He talks about a little grey hair on his own head. Now, I've had grey hair for a very long time. In 2005, I was teaching in staff college, and my children tricked me and said, "You will look handsome if you colored your hair." That's the only time I went and purchased some expensive Garnier and colored my hair and went to the class next day. For the next 7 days, nobody noticed. On the 7th day, I asked my students, "Don't you ever see any change in my appearance?" And they looked up and down, and one guy said, "You got new trousers." Now, so you see, this is how universal the middles are. You read them and you'll think something about yourself. There is another one about blowing hot and very cold, the one about Shatabdi. And of course, who hasn't been in a Shatabdi where there are at least 5 people loudly discussing their entire business plan all the way down. And I was reminded of on a more serene note of last year. I happened to go to Tokyo and I took that bullet train Shinkansen to Kyoto and back. In a 1,000-kilometer journey, I didn't see a single Japanese use his cell phone loud enough for anyone to hear. That's how they consider not invading somebody else's privacy, and I wish we learn from them. The book is, of course, humorous, like he is. It's tongue-in-cheek, but it never crosses a line that can go anywhere near, being obscene. Of course, obscene is too big a word. There is one particular chapter called Made in India. It's about how critical and important these people have become in our lives, these maids, these factotums who run our house, and practically we can't live without them. My experience, I was a student in staff college. We had a small child, and our maid who lived in the servants' quarter fell sick. For 2 months, my wife was cooking and feeding the maid. I coined the original term, made for each other. There is yet another chapter on tennis elbow. Vivek must be the only human being on earth who actually was seeking to get a tennis elbow. Why? I want you to read the book. There is one chapter on the art of escape, on how to get away from boring weddings where we need to attend out of rituals and obligation, but we don't want to be there.
It's not applicable for the gathering here.
I'm sure not. But once again, I was in Meerut, I was a brigade commander, and one of the senior guys from the army, a general, came to attend a wedding. And because he was staying in my guest room, even I got invited with my wife by the host to be brought along. We landed up for the wedding in the club, and the general and I straight away did a hard right and went to the room where the drinking was going on. We emerged at midnight, and when we came out, the wedding was over, the food had been taken away, and our ladies were seething with anger. Now this gentleman, who's actually a gentleman, next morning told me, he said, "Neeraj, I think we did very bad yesterday. We didn't behave ourselves, we got into drinking and chatting, and we didn't even go and wish the host." I said, "Sir, you were still well off. I still don't know whether I was representing the boy or the girl." So, the middle of everything is extremely relatable, extremely human, extremely funny. It's really wonderful, and I really encourage all of you to read it. Shakespeare said, "Brevity is the soul of wit." If that is true, then Vivek has all the wit in the world. And I don't want to be labeled not having wit, so I'm going to get off the stage. And congratulations, Vivek, on another milestone, on a string of milestones that you have, and more that will follow. And all I can tell you as a human being, as a friend, stay the person you are. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for that highly relatable and universally loved speech. Thank you so much. I would now like to invite Mr. Gaurav Yadav, who belongs to the 1992 batch of the Indian Police Service and was appointed as the Punjab DGP in 2022. Sir has remained posted in key assignments including Police Commissioner Jalandhar and SSP Chandigarh during his career. Needless to say, he is a distinguished police officer with an impeccable record and is highly appreciated for his path-breaking initiatives. Sir, the stage is yours.
Dr. Balram Gupta, General Bali, Manraj ma'am on the dais, amongst the distinguished audience, my seniors, Mr. Kaushik, Mr. Kapoor, Dr. Bali, my dear friend Amardeep. I must say that despite the Indo-Pak match, the full house here denotes the pull of the star of the day, and I congratulate Vivek, his fifth book, and extremely well written. I just went through the pages, and unlike General Bali, I would say that I have known Vivek for 23 years, since 2000.
Sorry for the interruption. It's not only the fifth book, it's also the fifth wicket already.
So it's not an interruption, but it's an update. So my congratulations to Vivek. We worked together, and in fact, in those days, we used to debate that in government service, and I used to dissuade him that, we need people like you in government. And I remember he was the main force behind the IT Park, which was when it was set up. He was the director IT, and among a host of multiple charges he had, and he did wonderfully well in his tenure in duty, and of course, seeing by what he has achieved as a motivational speaker and what he's a successful author. So I must say, Vivek, that it's been a good choice and a good path so far, and I wish you all the best. This is, and it's really good to be back here in CIA after a very long time, and I have fond memories of my association with Chandigarh, and I wish you a very pleasant, I know long speeches are very boring, so we'll maybe interact more over a cup of tea. Thank you everyone, and thank you Vivek for inviting me.
Today is all about an incredibly special book, as it is also about an incredibly special person. An incredibly natural writer, a 5-time author. His random forays is his popular column from the Hindustan Times. And as many of you know, he's also a TEDx motivational speaker. A wonderful speaker, but the best father. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it from the author himself, Vivek Atray.
Thank you so much, Priya. The chief guest, Mr. Gaurav Yadav, distinguished speakers of the day, Major General Bali, Dr. Balram Gupta, Manraj Grewal, and though I've known you for varying number of years, as was mentioned, I'm really delighted to see all of you here. Mr. Yadav is one of the busiest officers in the country. He runs a police force which has faced many challenges. Not easy to come for a book launch even on a Sunday afternoon, and he's here. I'm very grateful, sir. And I also remember the time when we were at the IT Park of Chandigarh together, and if I can tell an incident to the audience before I start, there was a very senior officer from the SPG with the PM, and he was saying something, and you were the SSP Chandigarh, and you had another point of view, and I was witness. You held your ground. You did not budge, and the IG had to relent. And I look up to you for many things since that day. So a round of applause for Mr. Yadav, please. And very nice to have your company again, sir. General Bali is probably the wittiest general I've met, though I've met many witty generals and many witty army officers. And he exceeds himself every time he comes on the mic, and I'm sure he'll come up with lots of books. I believe you all have only 1.5 till now, sir. So more books on the way. And look forward to your presence look forward to my presence at your book launches in future, so that I can pay compliments more in detail. Dr. Balram Gupta, I have grown to be so fond of, and although I know him from so many years, but he's always so warm with his words, so witty, so delightful as a narrator. And he's the guru of many of you in this hall, I know. So fantastic to have your company, sir. You exude that charm, the old world grace, and the way you are is just so inspiring. Fantastic to have you here, sir. Manraj is a good friend, and I must put it very precisely. This is 24 years and 10 months. And that is because I joined this Chandigarh administration in the March or April of March of 2000. And before that, I didn't know you, and I didn't know most of you here in the hall, except Nina and my children, and some others whom I knew before 2000. But most of you I didn't know. And that's why Chandigarh has grown on me. Very happy to see you here. I also would like to acknowledge the company of Lieutenant General Dipinder Singh, who is now 95. And fantastic to have your company here, sir. General Bali was talking about his 95-year-old mother. I and Colonel Chima called on you a couple of days. I extended this invitation, half hoping that you'll be here, and you look very dapper and very smart. I'm sure people after the launch is over would love to get some pictures clicked with you. Sir has been the MA to Field Marshal Sam Manekshaw. In the movie Sam Bahadur, his role was played by a tall young Sardarji, who was probably a little taller than you, sir, but not as tall in stature. And fantastic, really, really humbling to see you here. It's really nice to be able to be in your presence at times. Senior and retired officers of the defense services, of the civil services, serving and retired, of the defense services and the civil services, distinguished guests, members of the family, dearest friends and ladies and gentlemen. The reason I wrote my speech today is because a book is launched once in 3 years, and typically I don't write my speeches, but today was an important enough occasion for me to work hard. And if I work hard, then I do better than when I don't work hard. And I've been working hard on my writing. It's not easy to come out with a book. This is very humbly my 5th, but it's a 2nd collection. 3 books which I wrote with great effort, and 2 books which are collections put together, which as authors in this hall know are easier to produce because they are, you have already written over the years something and you put it together seamlessly or not so seamlessly and you bring it out. The thing is here that these episodes have started many years ago, and some of them are even dated, because when I talk of things like iPods or pagers in 2000, I don't think we had pagers then, they were before, but there are some of them which are a little outdated in many ways, but only a few. Many of them are universally applicable even today. And this tarif pe tarif that most of the speakers, all of the speakers showered on me, reminded me of Mr. Trump, who talks about tariff pe tariff. And we should not mistake that for tarif pe tarif. The India-Pakistan match cannot escape my speech. Mr. Bali and General Bali and Dr. Bali, with all due respect, I think I love cricket even more than both of you put together. I mean, I'm claiming that. And for me to have this book launch on the India-Pakistan Day is simply because I did not realize, and I should have checked the schedule, but here we are and here you are. And in fact, I must say, though it was not my desire, it was not even my plan, but it did cross my mind that because of this match, maybe I should skip my own book launch. But here I am. And India is doing pretty well, so we're fine. Actually, India is close to my heart. And we represent an India here, which Mr. Vivek Atray is in the front row. He says, ye Mother India, ye India hai, wo Mother India hai. That Mother India which we see out there in the villages, in the towns, in the shanties, in the transport areas, in the Kumbh Mela, in various places, that is India, and I write about that India. I do write about this India as well, and I think most of the humor comes from this India. But most of the empathy and most of the socially relevant articles that I write, which nowadays I write in my column Random Forays, and that book is called It's Still a Wonderful Life, the one which has compiled some articles of that. That is about India as a whole. Now, why the middle of everything? Why is this book called that? There are various reasons, and of course it's a collection of middles, and Manraj very lucidly explained what middles are. And even though they don't find place in the middle of the edit page anymore, I believe one of them has it on another page, Most of them have it on the side, most of them have them vertical, they used to be horizontal or whatever. And the Times of India used to allow people like me to write in the same space, the third edit, where exalted writers like Mr. Suraiya and Ms. Karkaria, they write over there. And one of them, which was published and which Kavya read out, Yawning Divide, is actually a chapter in the Maharashtra school education English book, without my permission. But they did mention that the Times of India depicted are from, so they credited the Times of India. And I was pretty happy when a classmate of mine phones me up, Vivek, your article is a chapter in our Maharashtra school education book. So I said, this is pretty proud moment for me, they're reading my chapter. And so my sister, both of them could not be here for very compelling reasons. They are the twins that Dr. Balram Gupta mentioned as being identical in that mistaken identity. They've been here at all my book launches, but today they are forgiven because they have important reasons. So my sister, one of them, wakes up at 4 in the morning. And the other one, I won't say who she is, but another relative is in Delhi and wakes up at 11. So that's how they are, that Yawning Divide. And the Maharashtra board teaches this chapter and asks questions. What time does the author's sister wake up every day? 2 marks for that. And I'm like, during COVID, I see these videos of Maharashtra teachers, and Atrays are actually supposed to be from Maharashtra, so I'm not making fun of them. Teaching my chapter and making a hash of it. And I see these videos of people teaching on the blackboard, whiteboard, whatever, and they're trying to explain that Yawning Divide. And what I did was to make a video of my own. And I explained that chapter myself. So if you ever happen to see my channel, you'll find a Yawning Divide explained over there. Now, middles also mean the middle of everything also means that we are in the middle of everything at every day of our lives. And we have left a lot of things to be here today. All of us are living these lives which are entangled. And we have these tentacles around us. And people are we're not sitting under a tree and meditating all the time. We have all these shackles. And yet we have to somehow unshackle ourselves and do the things we most want to do. Because otherwise, as Socrates said, and I keep quoting this one, beware the barrenness of a busy life. And that busy life is manjar zameen, nothing grows from that. So we have to find time for what is closest to our hearts. And to see all of you here on this Sunday with all the compelling reasons for you not to be here is really warming my heart. I'm very thankful to each one of you. Also, the middle refers to, sometimes we have the middle sibling. And in Bengali they call the brother who's in the middle the Mejda. And Paramahansa Yogananda, the author of the autobiography of a yogi, the book which I love and follow and my family follows and we meditate on his teachings, he was known as Mejda. And there's a book called Mejda about him. And that's the only book about Paramahansa Yogananda, written by his younger brother. And he writes in his autobiography of a yogi, he doesn't write about himself actually, it's not an autobiography, it's about everybody else, everything else. So that Mejda is very close to my heart. So that middle brother, that middle sibling can take heart. I'm sure some of you are middle brothers and siblings. So sisters or brothers. I am luckily or unluckily the oldest one in the family. I mean my brothers and sisters. And some of you may be the youngest ones, but some are in the middle. Also, all of us have middles sometimes in our middle ages, and these develop into paunches, and फिर कहते हैं बहुत पहुंचे हुए लोग हैं, तो वो भी होता है. But doctors will tell you to keep a watch on that middle, and also cricketers know the middle, and when you're out in the middle, then that is when Bali is also a leg spinner, that's why he's smiling more, and deceptively easy to hit, but not very easy to hit. Leg spinners. And the middle of life basically denotes that being in the thick of things, and that's what I wanted to talk about. And writing middles, how does it come? Where do these middles come from? And many of us are middle writers here, though not middle men if I may say so. Many of us are writers of middles, and I think I've also heard about Mr. Sarup Kishan, who wrote so many middles for the Tribune. And he actually, when he left his body, as we say spiritually, when he left his body, he was actually writing a middle. So he went in the middle of that middle. And it was very touching, and recently we lost Mrs. Sarup Kishan also. But he was an iconic writer. There have been many great writers of middles. I mean, I really don't claim to be a great writer of middles. I'm just observant. And when you write middles, you think about them, and they don't come to you by compulsion. They will not come to you as a column. I write a random forays for one paper, which I have to write every fortnight. So I start thinking about that column a few days before that. And it comes to me also. But a middle will come to you spontaneously, typically. So one could write a middle, that's not mine. One could write a middle on the view from the stage, which I can see here. I can see you. You can see only 5 people, if I can count correctly. And I can see countless people here. So more interesting is the view from the stage. In fact, there is a middle in the book called The View from the Stage. And the title of the book was actually going to be The View from the Stage, but then various forces compelled me to put the middle over there, and I think it was a good idea, despite opposition. Moods, places, work pressure, anything can affect your writing. Sometimes you're in the mood to write better, and sometimes you're not in the mood to write better. But I have learned from a very senior writer, whether you're in the mood or not, when you got to write, you bloody well write. And when you write, you can sit down later and improve it when you're feeling a little more literary, but get down to writing. And when you get down to writing, especially when you're writing a book, you do come up with something. I have written one of my novels, I think it was Dubeji Bounces Back or Move On Bunny, in 20-minute installments. So director IT park, meeting, ye wo, which may 20 minutes. Very difficult. How do you weave that thought process together? How do you get yourself into the zone? Of course, you can be in that zone in the chief secretary's meeting also, thinking about your next writings. He doesn't know that you're thinking about it. You just have to be smart enough to come up with the right answer. And mostly in a meeting, it is like, "Acha tum batao." So, "Acha tumne bata diya." Uske baad aap baithe hue hain. But why do you listen to other people? You think about your own book. So I've done that as well. And no explanations were called for that. I think this book is close to my heart because it showcases a lot of my writing journey. And some of the middles were I think, written in 2004, 5, so 20 years ago. Some of them were written very recently. And about 95% of them are published, some are unpublished, but that's how they are. And the spectrum is pretty wide. They are diverse. And that's why I talk about everything. But there are so many other things we can still write about. I mean, we heard so many tidbits from the middles. By the way, as a writer, as a lover of words, let me enlighten some of you who might think that the spellings of tidbits are T-I-T-B-I-T-S. They're not. They are T-I-D-B-I-T-S. I love this language. I love languages. And I love this fact of falling in love with language. And that's what, coupled with that observation, that spirit of putting together something that you've seen and noticed, that person whom you met on the train or the plane or the airport or in office, and you came up with something. I met so many people in my very charming career, I would say, because I was charmed by the society. And they would come with these rustic or non-rustic, very, very glitzy ideas as well at times. And they would come and they would present themselves, and one would learn so much from them. Many of you here I met in my office for the first time. And then that office was a place where lots of people would barge in, and some would come invited and some uninvited, because I was the director PR. And one would meet so many people there. And it really helped me to write later. So I'm not going to speak very long, I'll just close with a few thoughts, and must say that, the humorous side of my personality, I'm quite a serious person otherwise, you know me. I'm not a stand-up comic. These are two different things. Some people think that comedy and humor are the same thing. They're not. Comedy can be slapstick. You can have jhala jokes. But a humor writer has to have a bit of wit, a bit of charm. Writing is permanent. The spoken word is ephemeral, it's gone. You may record it, but nobody's going to watch it much in detail. The written word is there for all to see. So I think there you are challenged a little more. So if you ask me to come up with a comedy act, I can't really do that. If you ask me to write, I'll be able to. So Nina, my wife, who was on the stage for the book launch, and we met in 1986. In 1986. And now you know my age as well. Ghar bhi jana hai. Nahi, sahi bol raha hu. 1986, when she came in the first year and I was in the third year of college in engineering in NIT Kurukshetra. And Manraj already mentioned that everybody doesn't know this, by the way. So she came, and the first thing she liked about me was my writing. I don't know whether she'd seen me by then or not, but she probably had. But she preferred my writing more than me. I used to write for the Vulcan, which was our college magazine, once a year. So I wrote 4 articles in 4 years. No big deal. She loved all 4 of them. She read the previous one, she loved it. So she saw something in me as a writer. And when I joined the service after my father passed away and whatever happened, and then I joined, for 10 years I didn't write. And the service life, it just engulfs your mind. But then I started and she kept taking me on. Write. And it kept me sane, it kept me going. So that, and they would be published for some reason in top newspapers. And I have been published in all the 4 main dailies published here many a time. In fact, I wrote to Mr. Pabi's here. I wrote a column for Indian Express on the World Cup. So I would write a daily dispatch on World Cup matches in the 2007 World Cup, where we did disastrously badly. But that is the column I wrote for about 40 matches or 35 days. So finding that time, and then Nina would egg me on to write them. So you know more about the number 56 than I do. I mean, you came up with things which I had never thought of. And let me confess that it just happened that it was 56. And I'm not 56 right now. There's no reason for it to be 56. And but my previous book, Finding Success Within, does contain 52 life skills. So that had more reason. But you came up with delightful nuggets. Thank you so much for that. Right, I think I shall close. I do want to also add that, yes, P.G. Woodhouse, Manraj mentioned, also my Nanaji, who's mentioned in that he held her hand in the first chapter of the book. And my Nani was very sweet, and he would come up with these jokes, so witty. And one example, and that's where I imbibe these, I have many witty friends here, but I must confess I imbibed them from there. He would say, Vivek, go and get the dust from the stars. Now, the dust from the stars, I'm looking at him, sir, Nanaji, what? Daddy ji, we used to call him. Kya dust from the stars? It's a Stardust magazine, yeah. I'm like, where does he come from? So where did that come? Stardust used to be a very popular magazine. He would read it before any of us. And that's how the wit and humor was around me, and it just, readers, friends, colleagues, family, above all family, and the family is here. Very nice to see all of you. Some of them are not here, but that's what life is about. Lastly, I think I'll talk about love, because love is what really makes the world go round, and I think all of us are trying to show ourselves of being less loving in this era. But the human nature is actually full of love. And God is love, and love is God. And that love is within us. And we're all very loving people. But because we are hoity-toity and very proper, and we have to be officers or whatever we have to be, or wherever we are, the CEO or the editor or the general or whatever we are, wherever, no particular pinpointing. We're all like that, and we become very plastic in our reactions at times. That warmth, it recedes. So it's good to let it flow, because life is fleeting. And we need to hold on to that love. And Yogananda said, when I'm gone, only love can take my place. What a quote, what a thing, what a fantastic inspiration. I was very lucky to interview Rajnikant recently at Chennai. He's a fellow member of our spiritual order, and Swami Chidananji, the president. And Rajnikant is so humble. We have all these Rajnikant jokes, and I wanted to tell him one of them. But he was Rajnikant, I can't tell him his joke, right? So he was so humble, so sweet. And that love was emanating from his personality as well. So time for gratitude, family, friends, senior and junior colleagues who are here, people who've been helping me with the writing career and this book particularly. All the literary circles we are part of. We have Novel Bunch and Vibrant Networking Forum here. We have Fern Tree Publications. Hardeep Chandpuri ji, son of Brigadier Chandpuri, the hero. And Hardeep is my publisher for the second time. And I have not been loyal to any of my earlier publishers. I change them every time. But this time I've been loyal to the publisher of last time, so that shows he's a good guy. And also the one who's printed it, Rahul Goyal, is here. Thank you, Rahul, for that. And Kavya for designing the cover. And Spriha for hosting the day today. And family, everyone. Also want to recall the blessing of my parents. They left very early when I was quite young. And they're still with me. And the Guru, Paramahansa Yogananda, he says, everything can wait, but for your search for God cannot wait. So on that note, thank you all.
Thank you so much for that heartwarming speech. As we come to the close of the event, I would like to invite Mr. Hardeep Chandpuri, publisher from Fern Tree Publications, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good evening, everybody. First of all, a huge thank to all the dignitaries. Thank you. A bigger thanks to all of you. If there was a prize for being the bravest literary person ever, that should go to all of you for having lost out on the few overs of the match, but still being here. So we are so grateful to you all. And thank you to Vivek ji for having chosen Fern Tree as the publisher for his second book with us and the fifth in all. We hope to create even more magic in the years to come. And thank you all very much. Thank you.
May I please request the dignitaries to be presented with a token of our appreciation and gratitude.
Take a group picture. We already have one. So one for you. We take a group photo. So, just close up a little.
Please wait a minute. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. You've been a wonderful audience, and it's been a true pleasure to be here with all of you. I hope this evening stays with you long after you've left the hall, as I hope that the book stays with you long after you've kept it down. Thank you so much. Your presence here means a lot to us and our family. Please join us for high tea outside.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you.